Hey everyone, this is our dynamic warm-up. You want to do these before your workout. They're super important for not only injury prevention, but also preparing your muscles to work properly and effectively throughout your workout. So we're starting off here with knee tucks. So what these do is they actually stretch out the glutes a little bit while also actively working your hip flexors and your glutes and core on the leg that is actually keeping you up. For almost every exercise here, we're going between 5 to 10 reps each side. That usually gives ample amounts of time and reps to get the blood flowing, to get the synovial fluid into the joints, ready for heavier exercise. Next up, I call these half kneeling hip thrusts. So we're essentially just rocking backwards and forwards, but the important part here is that you want all the movement coming from the hip, the knee, and the ankle. You don't want your lower back coming up and backwards while you're doing this. You want to maintain a stable torso, and if you look at my legs here, you'll see that I go back and forth from getting deeper into the hips to pushing more forward into the ankle. So here, I'm doing more hips because my shin only goes vertical and then backwards, whereas the first few reps, you'll notice that I went further deeper into my ankle joint to stretch out the calves. This is a little variation of the world's greatest stretch. So first, you take a big step out, forwards or backwards. You want to feel the stretch right there in the hip flexor, the front of the hip. Now, if you're super tight, you can stay on one knee and do it really lightly and softly, but it's a little more effective if you have the requisite mobility to keep that knee off the ground, and you'll feel a bigger stretch in the hip flexor. Then the next step is putting both your hands down onto the ground, and you want to open up your thoracic spine. So essentially, by planting our one hand on the ground and also having our legs in a split stance, that creates a stable base of support that then we can rotate and open up on the other side. So when we have everything stabilized and we just move one arm at a time, that really opens up what we call your thoracic spine, which is really important for warming up as it helps improve mobility for people that have bad posture, and it promotes the right muscles to be working throughout your workout. Now, what we don't want is this right here, rounding the lower back. It's the lazy way out. It's if you don't want to really get deep into that stretch, you do the cheat and you round your lower back. That's no good. We want to get into the hips. These are called adductor rockbacks. So what we do is kick one leg out so that you feel a light stretch on the inner thigh. And you don't want to overstretch this too much. A lot of people, especially people that have desk jobs, tend to be really tight in the hips, especially right there in the adductors, the inner thigh. So you want to be careful. You want to just ever so slightly kick your leg out and rock back and forwards. And then once you start to feel the area warm up, or you don't feel like it's much of a stretch anymore, then you can widen your stance a little bit more and continue on for some more reps. And here, I'm just going forwards and backwards, trying to maintain a pretty straight spine. It's not going to really completely happen because I'm going in a big range of motion, so likely similar situation with yourself, but that's not really the point. The point is to stretch the inner thigh while we're dynamically moving at the same time. And remember what I said earlier, these are great to do, especially if you have a desk job. Those types of jobs really create tight hips, and it's important to open them up. A lot of people also lack lateral mobility, and this helps a lot laterally. These will feel great, and you'll especially notice it after your first time doing it. This is the full kneeling horizontal thrust. So there's a couple ways to do this. You'll notice my first couple reps, I'm more upright, and what you'll feel there is your quads working for the most part. which is totally fine. But if you have any knee issues, it might be a lot of tension on your knees and might be something that you don't want to do, especially if it feels bad. So what you want to do in that case is do more of a hip-based movement. So now you'll notice the difference. I'm sitting my butt all the way back to my heels, and my torso is bending forwards a little bit. And I'm just focusing on the glutes, pushing forwards and backwards. Now you really want to make sure that it's not your lower back pulling yourself back up. It should be your glutes thrusting forwards and backwards. Speaking of glutes, this is the glute bridge. I'm sure you're all familiar with this exercise. Super basic, super straightforward. It's a smaller range of motion than a full hip thrust, so it's really good to start with. When warming up, it's better to start with smaller movements and then slowly work into bigger movements and bigger ranges of motion throughout the warm-up as your muscles warm up and loosen up a little bit. So here all I'm doing is just thrusting straight up, and I'm locking out my butt. If you want, you can actually grab onto your butt so you can feel the glutes actually working. What happens with some people, especially people that suffer from low back pain, is that their lower back will be overactive and it'll actually be pulling your hips up more than your glutes will, and that's no good. So next up is the side-lying T-spine rotation. So kind of similar to what we did in the world's greatest stretch, where we locked the hips in place and now we're opening up the upper back. So this will not only stretch and open up the chest, but it'll also activate the muscles that retract, pull back your shoulder blades. Your scapula is your shoulder blades, so you want good scapular mobility. And that's related to what we call T-spine or thoracic spine mobility. So what we use the ball for, you can use anything, is that we like to keep the hips stable. So what we're doing is having one leg straight down and then your other knee on something to match the height of your hip. If your knee right now, my right knee, is all the way on the ground, you're going to start twisting your lower back a little bit to get that extra range of motion. We don't want that. We want to set the hips so that you're not compensating with other muscle groups and just focusing on creating mobility through that upper spine. This one usually feels great, so this is something that you can do pretty much every workout, even if you're just doing lower body. Last but not least is the band pull apart. You definitely have a band if you're going to be doing this workout ahead of you. So what we do here is stand straight and tall, squeeze your glutes and brace your abs so that you have a nice stable spine. You don't want to be rocking back and forth with your lower back. Again, you would feel your lower back too much if that was happening, so be really aware of your movement. And we want all the movement coming from your shoulder joint. So you lock out your arms and you open all the way as wide as you can, and you want to feel behind the shoulder and around your shoulder blades. So here I'm just going through a couple of different versions, underhand, overhand. Grabbing the band with just one side is a little bit easier than the original way which I was doing, which is grabbing the band, doubling up on it. That's a little bit harder. It's good to just change it up, so try whichever one feels good for you. We specifically created this version of an on-the-spot dynamic warm-up so that you can do these in tight spaces. If you're working out at home, you likely don't have a lot of space to move around, so we did all of these exercises on the spot to ensure that you get a proper warm-up. And that's it. Now you're ready to get into your workout.